Welcome to 5 Good Minutes.
You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of Esther with Emily DeAngelo.
Today we're going to see in God's story of Esther that God reveals His sovereignty when His people choose to keep His laws over the earthly king's laws imposed on them. In the middle of chapter 3, verse 8, we read that Haman is tattling to King Xerxes about the Jewish exiles in their kingdom. And this is what conniving Haman says. There is a certain people dispersed among the peoples in all of the provinces of your kingdom who keep themselves separate. Their customs are different from those of all other people, and they do not obey the king's laws. It is not in the king's best interest to tolerate them. Haman goes on to conspire against God's people and convince King Xerxes to make a law against them when he says, "If it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them." That's verse 9 of chapter 3 in the book of Esther. God's people, the Israelites, are separate. They're set apart, and they keep a higher law than the earthly king's law. They knew that the one true God, Yahweh, as they called them, was the only God to be worshipped. So they refused to bow down and worship anyone or anything else. And we see in this part of Esther's story that an earthly king's law was imposed on the Jews to harm them. But their faithfulness to Yahweh and worshiping Him alone was an opportunity for the Persian Empire to see God's ultimate display of His sovereignty. If we jump ahead in the story to Esther chapter 9, we see established a Jewish festival called Purim, which celebrates God's control, His sovereignty over the casting of lots. Purim comes from the word pur. It's a Persian word for casting a lot or rolling the dice. We see it in Esther chapter 3, verse 7. And this was wicked Haman's consultation of the pur for the purpose of determining the auspicious day for executing his cruel plot against the Israelites. We see here in this account what man meant for evil, God used for good. Even to this day, Jews celebrate God's intervention on behalf of His people in the festival of Purim. Religious and non-religious Jews observe Purim annually as a Jewish festival that occurs on the 14th and 15th days of the month of Adar, just before Passover every year. Purim is a Jewish festival that celebrates the Jewish people's survival in the face of destruction when they were exiles in the Persian Empire. And this popular festival is celebrated tremendously with costumes and parties and parades and special foods to remind people of God's delivery from death and destruction. And as the Jews celebrate Purim, Christians all over the world today celebrate similarly in our Easter traditions. God's delivery from death and destruction is celebrated by Christ followers with parties and songs and special foods at Easter to remember together what God has done for us in the death and resurrection of His perfect Son, Jesus. Easter is one of my favorite seasons at Orchard Hill Church because of our celebrations of God's sovereignty in rescuing mankind from sin and death. We gather, we sing, we celebrate. So in application, I'm thinking while it is good and right to celebrate annually what God has done for His people, my challenge to myself and to listeners today is that we celebrate God's goodness daily, not just on Sundays, not just on Easter or Purim, today and every day. Psalm 145:7 says they celebrate your goodness, your abundant goodness, and joyfully sing of your righteousness. May this be what generations to come say about the people of today who have been changed by Christ. When we profess faith in Jesus, we are set apart to live differently for Him. We have been delivered from death by what He has done for us on the cross. So how do we live? We have been given abundant life when we follow Him. What might that look like today for you and for me? Let's celebrate these good gifts from our sovereign God by sharing Him with others.
Thanks for joining us here today.
There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.